The presidency has denied reports making rounds that the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, and the federal government negotiating team have proposed a sum of 105,000 naira as the new minimum wage. After organized labor declared a nationwide strike, the federal government met with the union leaders and struck a deal. The negotiating team had subsequently briefed the President Bola Tinubu, who directed the finance minister to present a new minimum wage template within 48 hours. Onanuga and his team met the President on Thursday but did not disclose the outcome of the meeting. However, there were reports that Edun's team proposed 105,000 naira as the new minimum wage. But responding to this, Bayo Onanuga, the special advisor to the President on Media and Strategy, described the reports as false. Now joining us via Zoom to give an insight on this situation is a policy and public affairs analyst, Emmanuel Osemeka. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Of course, it's good to have you. So what do you think about this? I mean, it's a huge confusion going around, the country at the moment. Of course, this is a much awaited template, seeing how the rumors are flying around. What is your take on this confusion?
Well, I think it's really not a confusion per se. I think what the federal government is trying to do is that they're trying to be more circumspect this time around. I think they're trying to settle it in-house before they come out openly to announce what they're offering labor. Of course, if you recall, at the Senate, a lot of figures were bandied left and right, ditto the House of Representatives. I also know that if the government, listens to the news and watches a lot of, policy programs where analysis take place. A lot of people have said, between 75,000 and 100,000. Some have said 120,000. But I believe that the federal government is also quite concerned with the ability of the private sector and of course the state government to pay and sustain whatever minimum wage that it will eventually be agreed to. And of course, in addition to ensuring that we do not suffer job losses, because according to NECA, that's a National Employers Consultative action or alternative, they advise that anything above 60,000 as at the time of the last proposal will be very difficult for them to sustain, and it might lead to job losses. And that is one of the things they're trying to avoid. So I believe the federal government surely proposed 105, but they do not want a situation where they will have this back and forth again with Labour. So instead, they sort of did the proposal privately with Labour, and I know Labour rejected the offer, so they are still having a conversation, to get to something that is more acceptable to Labour and, of course, private sector and the state government.
Yeah. So you believe the rumor of the figure, the 105,000 naira, because some people seem to think that the federal government leaked out this particular rumored figure in order to test, the feelings or how the Labour will be receiving of this amount.
Absolutely, I believe the figure. I mean, I have also used some back channels to verify the information. If you recall, from 2023, when this government came on board, you will see clearly that the administration has been doing a lot of flip-flopping. Some have described the administration as a listening government, but I have not seen them as more of a listening government. I've seen them as an ill-prepared government, because I believe that there are scientific ways to arrive at a suitable figure that you can sit down with Labour and have a concise, discussion. You present your fears, you present your facts before Labour, but unfortunately, Labour seem to be more prepared for this negotiation than the federal government and its team. And I really feel bad that the National Planning Commission, which is supposed to be like a think tank agency for the federal government. They ought to have done some level of clean house, done a lot of analysis and research on the best way to proceed with the negotiations with Labour. Unfortunately, the research department of the federal government is not doing a very good job at the moment.
So based on the time span that the Labour Party or the federal government have promised the Labour Party, which is the negotiation would be finished before the week runs out, are you optimistic that this decision or this negotiation would be done with and a better result would come out of it, for both parties?
Yeah, I know you mean NLC, the Labour
Union. I beg your pardon, yes.
Before Labour Party will come for you and I. Okay. So it's a bit difficult to predict because negotiations sometimes can be quite tricky. I do not see any reason why they will not even have an agreement tonight if they are able to sit down, have proper discussions. And I also think that the federal government has not been doing a very good job for themselves, because there are other things the government can actually put forward beyond just the figures. The federal government must also be very careful not to throw out a lot of heavy figures, because whatever numbers you agree will also come with its own inflation. And we're already suffering, super hyperinflation at the moment. I believe that if the government can take care of some of the food shortages we have, the food insecurity we have so far, which is one of the major drivers of inflation in the country, and they're able to quickly bring out the CNG buses, reduce the cost of transportation for workers. If they are able to, put action to their words, I believe the labor movement will give them some level of, trust, because where we are now is that, one, the trust deficit between the government and the people is at an all-time low. The trust deficit between the government and the labor movement is almost non-existent. That's why the strike happened. So whether they will agree in 2-3 days, it's neither here nor there. I believe if the right chords are struck, labor movement will definitely take it back to their people, explain properly, with some proper agreements that they're willing to keep. Some of the things that I've mentioned, before. Reverse the newly increased electricity bills, reverse some of the errors that they've made in the past, and be true to their words. I believe the labor movement will agree, and they will move forward. They can come back to this in 2 years.
We would have to wait and see on that one. I mean, people would quite be surprised if the federal government decides to reverse on a lot of decisions that they've made. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Emmanuel Osemeka, and of course dissecting this situation. Appreciate your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Of course.